So we have successfully added the gallery for this post, the Paris, France tour. And maybe you're wondering, or while you are working with this tutorial or this course, maybe you're wondering, well, may I add any library that I found in the jQuery repository, for example? Well, the answer for that almost ever is yes. You can add wherever you want to WordPress. And that's the goal for this video. We're gonna introduce, or we're gonna add the Fancybox library to create a lightbox effect with these images. So having this in mind, you can add any plugin that you want for your WordPress team when you start developing your own teams. So I'm gonna open a new tab and let's find the Fancybox website. You can see it's Fancybox jQuery Lightbox alternative, and it will take us to this fancybox.net, but here you can see we have the Fancybox 2 version. So I'm gonna click here and this will take me to another website. This one is called fancyapps.com/fancybox, and here you have some examples. You can click here and view the examples. And you have here the images. Here you have the HTML code, really simple. And also you have the JavaScript to make this work. I'm gonna scroll to the top. Here I have the downloads. So I'm gonna click here and you can see download version 2.1.5. So I'm gonna save link as, and we're gonna download the Fancybox file right here in the ATW. So I'm gonna open ATW, make this one bigger, and the file is right here, Fancybox version 2.1.5. I'm gonna decompress, making double click here. If you're using Windows, well, you have to right click on the file. And here you have the demo that we saw before. You can open this and check the demo for Fancybox. But also there are the files that we need for this to make this work. You can see here we have this source file and we have a bunch of images. So I'm gonna place all these images in the img folder, but I'm gonna create a new folder here. So let's open and create a new folder. This one is called Fancybox. And we have all the images for this Fancybox right there. So I'm gonna drag all the images there. Here we have the fancybox.css. I'm gonna click here on new folder and I'm gonna add CSS folder. And I'm gonna drag the CSS over here. And here we have the jQuery fancybox.js file. So I'm gonna drag this to the JS folder. I think I made a mistake. There it is. Now I can remove this. And also I'm gonna remove the zip file. And I'm gonna open the code. I'm gonna open the functions.php file. And I'm gonna scroll a little bit. Here you can find some functions to add the scripts. Here we have HTML5 blank, header scripts. But also we have these styles. So the way that HTML5 blank works, it adds the styles and the scripts in different functions. When we created our theme from scratch, we added everything in one function. Both weights are okay, you don't have a problem. I'm gonna copy all of this, copy, paste it right here so we can change the name for the file I'm gonna load. I'm gonna change this to Fancybox, and I'm gonna copy the same right here because we have to register the library and then we enqueue the library. So there are two lines right there. I'm gonna remove everything from here. And the name of the file is jQuery.fancybox.js. And here we have the version. I'm gonna double click here and you can see the version 2.1.5. So I'm gonna place it right here and change this for Fancybox. And that's all for the JavaScript file. I'm gonna scroll a little bit. I'm gonna copy this, normalize, and I'm gonna place here Fancybox CSS. And I'm gonna change the path for this file. Here we have CSS. It's right here, CSS, and the name of the file is called jQuery.fancybox.css. If I save this and reload our project and check the console, you can see we get this error, jQuery is not defined, and that's because we haven't enqueued the jQuery library. You can see we have the Conditionizer library, Modernizer, Fancybox, and we have our own script files. But we don't have jQuery, so let's do that. P enqueue script, and I'm gonna pass jQuery. This way we can enqueue the jQuery library that comes with, well, with WordPress. So I'm gonna reload. You can see the meshes is gone. So let's take a look. Here we have the scripts.js, so we have already a JavaScript file where we can add the code that we want for JavaScript. So I'm gonna open script.js, and you can see we have even the document ready already placed, and it says DOM ready. Take it away. So I'm gonna remove this, and I'm gonna write some JavaScript. It's gonna be a really simple function. You can see here in the examples, we only add to a class, we apply the Fancybox method. So let's inspect the code here so you can check how everything is how we're gonna get everything done. You can see here we have div ID gallery 2. This is the gallery that we added. And the ID number 2, well, this won't work as a selector because this gallery number 2 will change when we create another gallery. We have a class gallery, and this may work because this gallery will apply to all the galleries. But also here we have this gallery ID 49, and since this is an ID, well, this selector won't work because it will only work for this gallery. When you create another gallery, it will have another ID, maybe 10 or 50 or 100. And if you remember, when we added this, I'm gonna log into WordPress. And I think when we created this project or this image, let's open this in Paris, France. I'm gonna click here on the image and click on edit. Next class is called gallery column 3, and if you remember, you added this column 3, but if you change the number or your client change this number, well, it will add another class based on the number that your client or you choose. So this won't work. Also, we have this gallery size thumbnail, and that's from here the size. If you change the size to medium or large or full size, it will change the class. So this class won't work as a selector. So we have this gallery, and this gallery will apply to all the galleries that you create in WordPress. So this may work. So I'm gonna add a jQuery selector, and I'm gonna add that gallery because this is a class. Next, you can see we have these gallery items, and each image is a gallery item. So I'm gonna copy this and add a class gallery item. And if I click here, you can see we have an anchor tag and the image. We have the image and we have the link for the larger version. So let's add the anchor tag, and let's add Fancybox. And I'm gonna close the method. If I save and reload, I'm gonna click here, and you can see we got the effect that comes with Fancybox. The problem is we don't have the lightbox. We don't have the background color, the black background color, and that's because we added this CSS file, and all the images were in the same level of this CSS file. but we place the image here in the img folder Fancybox. So let's fix that. I'm gonna, here in the URL background image, I'm gonna append a dot. So we go one level up, and we are now here on the path of the project. And then we have to open the img and then the Fancybox. I'm gonna add /img Fancybox. So that's the path for the images. And I have to add this path to all the images that we have in the project. So I'm gonna copy and paste it right here, scroll a little bit more, right here, and right here, and right here. So let's save this and let's reload. So I'm gonna click again in one of the images, and you can see now we have this gray color as a background, and we have this closing button. So I'm gonna click here, and this way you can open and show the images in a Fancybox that I think looks amazing. If you make this smaller, test this as responsive web design, you can click here and you can see that it adapts correctly. So I have two galleries, and that's because if I open the single tours, I forgot to remove the content, so I'm gonna remove that. We only got one. If you take a look at the design, you can see we have these images are on the same size, and that's, well, they are more not at the landscape, not in landscape. There are more in portrait here in WordPress. Here we have them in landscape. So let's open the style.css, and I'm gonna scroll a little bit where we find the single tours, and I'm gonna add gallery tours, and let's add some CSS to make this work. I'm gonna add the gallery because this is a class. Next, gallery item, so we are targeting each of the images. We add a height of 100 pixels. Next, we add a width of auto, and we set this to important. And finally, let's add a padding of 0 and 6 pixels. I'm gonna save and reload, and you can see we got this, well, a little mess right there. Next, I'm gonna target the gallery item, img, so we are now in each of the images that we have. So I'm gonna add border, none, and I'm gonna set this to important. And that's because the WordPress gallery has its own styles, and we're gonna override that styles. Next, I'm gonna add width 100% and height 100 pixels. And finally, let's add the gallery break, and this display to none. So let's save and reload. Now we have all the images in place and looking better. If I click here, you can see that the image is working as the same that we have before. And one of the cool things about this Fancybox is that you can apply all the methods that you have here. For example, if I look for this open effect, you can see it says open effect, animation effect. You have some options right here: elastic, fade, or none for each transition type. So I'm gonna open the script.js, and I'm gonna open the curly braces, and I'm gonna add an open effect right here, open effect, and I'm gonna add fade effect when I open these images. So I'm gonna close this, I'm gonna reload, click here, and you can see we got this open effect. So I think this is looking great. So this is it for all the tours section. You can see we have these tours, and then you can visit any of these tours. Before we finish, you can see if I click here, you can get the gallery working. If I open one of the other tours, we don't see the gallery. That's because we haven't created. So let's create that and make sure that it works. So I'm gonna click here, and let's open the images for this course. And this is Berlin, Germany, so I'm gonna click on Add Media, and I'm gonna place all these images. So I'm gonna drag and drop right here. Next, I'm going to click here on Create Gallery. And let's add the gallery. And you can see it says link to, we have to link this to media file. And let's insert this gallery. Remember, you can click here on edit and you can drag this to make this, well, you can reorder the pictures. So I'm going to click on update gallery, update again. I'm going to reload and I'm going to click here and you can see that it's working. So this way, every gallery that you create will have the same Fancybox effect. And this way you can, well, you can add any library that you find on the internet to WordPress. There is no problem. There is no restriction to that, to do that. You only have to find, well, the correct class or the correct code to make this work, like we did here on the gallery item anchor tag. So in the next video, or in the next chapter, we're gonna start working with the testimonials section for our website.